So hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Eric Cochran and this is the Cochran Doctrine. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel below. So in the previous videos I've uploaded, I gave some personal expertise in working in the rideshare industry through COVID this past year. I'm now going to move on to another subject that I can offer some personal first-hand advice on. In this video, and at least one more to come, I am going to be speaking as a proud 5-year alumnus of Riverside Military Academy in Gainesville, Georgia. In this video, I'm going to be going over what makes a military school and how it's different from a regular school. I'll also go into what day-to-day life was like during my 5 years there between 8th grade and senior year from 2004 to 2009. So I'm going to start off by mentioning that from kindergarten through 12th grade, I attended 5 different schools, and all but one of those years I was in private school. K through 3rd grade, I went to Catholic school. Uniforms, very strict dress codes. 4th and 5th grade, I went to just a regular, secular private school, no uniforms. 6th grade, I returned to a Christian-based school, this time where we once again had to wear uniforms. 7th grade was the year that my parents and I moved from Atlanta down to Destin, Florida, where for the one and only year I went to public school. And then the following year, starting in 8th grade, I went off to Riverside, where I remained all through high school. So I think that you can say I've been in just about every type of school environment, and military school, with a total of 5 years, is where I have spent the longest. So, a military school is very much a private college preparatory institution just like any other, but with an omnipresent military structure and environment. Cadets, as we're called, are required to wear uniforms that are closely modeled after military uniforms, and we must be clean-cut and clean-shaven to military standards at all times. Curriculum-wise, it's the same as any other high school, but the main difference is that participation in JROTC is a requirement rather than simply an elective. JROTC classes, from my experience, were pretty much a pass-fail participation grade. The weekday life is very structured. When I was at Riverside, school days fluctuated maybe by about 10 minutes or so, day to day. And our schedule might change a little bit year to year, but in general, this is how it applied. We woke up at 6:30 every morning. We then had morning formation up on the mess hall quad before breakfast at around 7:30. Then we had breakfast, and then we were off to classes starting at around 8:15. We had 3 to 4 class periods until lunch. Then after lunch, we had another 2 class periods for the day, concluding right around just after 3. 2 days a week during the school day, as far as I can remember, in the 5 years I was there, it was always Tuesdays and Thursdays. We had drill period, which was a little bit longer than a class period. This was the other part of the mandatory JROTC program. During drill, we were usually rehearsing for parades, or we were preparing for the annual formal inspection, depending on what time of year it was. Or, we could be doing pretty much whatever the JROTC department felt was necessary. This was, in the end, their time that they had to have us cadets do whatever they thought we needed to work on. As for classes, after classes, if we didn't have tutorial assigned by any teacher, we then had about an hour to go back to the barracks and unwind, maybe call our parents, and then athletic practices usually started around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and would run for the next 1.5 to 2 hours. If you weren't participating in a sport that season, then we had mandatory afternoon recreation Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. Wednesdays, they would give us the time off, and of course, Friday after class, we were mostly free. Apart from sports, we also had some JROTC related activities that met within this time frame, such as drill team, rifle team, the ranger team. Personally, I never got into any of that. I was on the academic team during the fall. Then I was on the swim team during the winter, and I played lacrosse in the spring. Then after athletic practices / afternoon recreation ended, we had close to an hour to get showered and prepared for dinner, which was around 7 p.m. Then after dinner, we usually went back up to the barracks just before 8, and from then on, the rest of the night was study hours until lights out at 10 o'clock. That pretty much was our Monday through Thursday schedule, plus Friday up until the end of classes. Going into the weekend, starting after classes on Friday, is when cadets were free to go home. We had to be back by 7 p.m. On Sunday in time for study hours. During the football season, I will say that cadets were required to stay for home football games usually up until halftime, those being on Friday nights, of course. We did have closed weekends, usually because of Sunday parades, where cadets were not allowed to leave campus overnight. Parents could usually come and visit and take cadets off campus for a given period of time, just as long as they had them back on campus by lights out that night. But they couldn't take us off campus overnight on closed weekends. In 5 years that I was there, I will not say never, but it rarely happened to me. We did have weekly grades, and if you were failing any of your classes or you had been written up so many times, which translated to punishment hours, you were not allowed to go off campus during the weekend. And I'd say that this was your first and foremost punishment for either one. Until your hours were down to 0 and you were passing all of your classes with a C or better, you were on campus restriction. Open weekends on campus were usually very chill compared to the week. Friday nights with no home football games, we were required to go to dinner, but the rest of the night was ours until 11 p.m. Same went for Saturday. Breakfast was optional, but lunch and dinner mandatory. But in between all of that, the day was wide open. Certain places on campus, like the rec center or the pool, might be open for a few hours for cadets to enjoy. There were usually some off-campus trips to places like the mall, or maybe to a movie or to a skating rink on Saturdays and Sundays. We could usually order delivery food Friday and Saturday nights, whether it be pizza, whether it be Chinese food. I'm sure now with Uber Eats, cadets can order just about anything, but we didn't, of course, have that in the late 2000s when I was there. I will say that during basketball season, i.e. during the winter, a good number of games, home basketball games, would fall on Friday evenings as well as Saturday afternoons and evenings. And if we were on campus, then we were required to go and support our team for at least part of it. But most time spent on campus during the weekends, we cadets were pretty much just hanging out in our barracks TV lounges, or our other favorite spot, as we called it, the Eagle's Nest at the time, where we were just watching sports, watching movies, playing video games, playing pool, chowing down on pizza and hamburgers and ice cream, which they sold at the Eagle's Nest. I think you can pretty much get the idea. It was really chill on the weekends. So Sunday, there was a little bit more structure that returned to our schedule. We did have the option to go to off-campus church services, which I certainly did starting my sophomore year. I got very involved in the local Catholic parish up near the academy. But if we opted to not go to off-campus church, then there was a Judo-Christian service that was offered at the auditorium. Either way, we had to wear our best uniform that morning. We had only 2 meals that day. We would have brunch around 11 a.m. Excuse me. And then after that, we were pretty much free until an early dinner, which was at around 4 o'clock, as best I can remember. Then we had a couple more hours of free time, and Sunday night, the regimented schedule for the upcoming week would resume with study hours at 8 and then lights out at 10 o'clock. It took a little getting used to for me when I first arrived on campus, but after 60 days, I really started liking the place and it just became part of my life. And I will be getting into more about my personal experience at Riverside in the next video. But that's pretty much my experience in terms of, if you were to ask me what makes a military school different from a normal school. So, I'm Eric Cochran, and this is the Cochran Doctrine. Stay tuned.